You're trying, you're grasping, you're controlling, you're forcing, you're trying to predict, you're overthinking, overanalyzing, and that's how people live their relationships. So then, if you are going to prepare your brain and body for a new relationship, then you would have to become love completely every day. And that signal then that you're sending out into the field can carry the thought of your health, your wealth, your relationship, or whatever. But here's the cool part. When the heart is activated like that, and you feel so whole, so in love with life, so satisfied in the moment, so exuberant, that it's impossible to want. Now you're no longer in lack. Now you're so whole that you will magnetize wholeness in your life. The person who's the person that fits the mold energetically, that would be the same as you and yet complement you, so that the two can become one, right? And then, instead of in contrast, in union, you exchange information equal to that emotional state. In other words, people use each other to reaffirm their dependence on certain emotions. You have certain people you complain with about politics or whatever, they complain back about their lives, and you use each other to reaffirm, you know, some type of
belief or something.
Belief about life. Emotionally, you have emotional agreements on things. Well, that emotion is energy, and energy is frequency, and frequency carries information. So you share the same energy, you share the same information, but that's what people do in their lives. But now, in a true loving relationship, when you're truly in your heart, then the question is, what would love do in the relationship? And when your heart is open, it's no longer about you. It's about how I feel so amazing with you. I feel even more amazing, but without you, I'm still whole. And so now I'm no longer in need or lack. And so now, when we get together and our fields interfere, when they start interfering, now the amplitude gets way higher and there's way more energy. And now, I mean, I'm all about all 7 centers of the body lining up, all of them. And we're here in a body, let's enjoy it all, but come from love. And so now your heart is so open that you can't do anything else but give. You feel so amazing. You're so happy with yourself, so happy with your life, so happy with what you have. You want other people to feel the same way. And you say, here, take that. And when you give now, guess what happens? You release more oxytocin, more nitric oxide, and more of those chemicals that cause the heart to swell even more. Then all of a sudden, your immune system gets stronger, and all of a sudden your body starts feeling better, you start having more energy, and now the constructive interference between two people that are coming together in wholeness and no longer dependence or lack or separation or need is a different game. So then what they do to protect, to nurture, to grow, to evolve that love is one of the most important things that they have. Not because they're doing it out of obligation or because they're married or whatever. It's just they can't not do it. We see people, had somebody stand the other day in our workshop in profoundly high amounts of gamma. She can do it on command. And there's an incredible arousal that takes place that goes along with these high brain frequencies that you can only describe as ecstasy or bliss. Now you're getting that ecstasy and bliss, not from anyone or anything out there. No drug, no person, no football game, no shopping spree is doing that. It's somehow
inside.
It's coming from within. Like, what is that connection that you have? And so one of the scientists said to this woman, how do you do that? You know what she said? I have difficulty not doing it. I can't not do it when I'm in a, it's too, when I'm doing this, it's too good. So now, that could be a constant feeling in your life. So now,
what, love?
Independent of anyone or anything, it's coming from within you, okay? So think about this. Your love is not wavering, it's constant, right? So now imagine having this feeling. And when oxytocin is released, what most people don't know is that it seeps into the amygdala. And there's certain survival emotions in the amygdala, fear and anxiety, aggression and anger, pain and suffering. And it literally shuts the lights out in those circuits in the amygdala. And there's only one thing left, love and joy, right? So now this person is suppressing the survival centers, resetting the baseline of the past, how they perceive the past. And now the research on oxytocin shows that when you have just a slight level of increase, and our research shows our students are way outside of normal, that it's impossible to hold a grudge. You know why? Because the feeling feels so good. Why would you judge another person, or why would you react to some condition and lose that feeling? You figure it out really fast. So this birth of unconditional love really says, I'm in love with myself, my connection to some divine intelligence within me. And because I'm so in love with life and with myself, I'm looking at life through the lens of love, which means I'm going to allow you to be whoever you want around me. I don't really, I'm no longer...
Not a reaction.
I'm not a reaction because I've overcome my fear, I've overcome my anger, and now I'm ready for love. And now that relationship that you have, if you find that equal, that's a needle in the haystack, because now it's a vibrational match.
Right.
And so as long as you're evolving, as long as I'm evolving, as long as we're sharing the same ideals, as long as we're working together, as long as we have our independence, and as long as we come together and we bring our best, and I say to you, how was your day? I mean, what did you learn? Or let's start our day. So how are you going to be today? Come on, let's just support each other. So what are the programs you're going to stay away from? Are you going to rush? You know, what did you do yesterday that you want to improve today? How can I support you? How can I love you in that? We want to text at noon. What do you need? And then, how am I going to be? Okay, tell me how you vocalize it, articulate it, so that now I understand your intention and I can support. That's good. And so then, when the person can articulate it, what are they doing? They're rehearsing in their mind who they're going to be, and so now they're becoming conscious of that future. And then they have to work on staying conscious of their unconscious programs, and by articulating that, they're going to not let those thoughts slip by as well. So then, now you have two people in evolution. It's no longer about all the other things. It's not about the money. It's not about the sex. It's not about the weight. It's not about the diet. Those are all things that we already know. This is something else. This is a whole nother level where when you exchange and evolve on this level, it's the most important thing, because now you see that person as a mirror. Oh my God, she did amazing. I'm in love with her. I admire her. Wow, she's got it going on. She executed today. She got her behaviors to match her intentions, and I want to celebrate her. Like wow, I'm in awe. That to me, you don't work on that. You work on you. Everybody works on themselves, and then they bring their best. And if they're not at their best, excuse yourself and get back to your best. And if you tell me it's that person or that circumstance, we went back to the unconscious program of being a victim. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with reacting. But the next question is, how long?
I'm going to stay in this mode.
Right. Or do you want help getting out?
Right.
Yeah, right? So I think that when you start feeling those elevated emotions and your energy is synchronized, right? And you got a Wi-Fi signal. And what are you connected in? In this sense of wholeness, this sense of love, this sense of joy, this satisfaction with yourself and your life. And when I watch this, Louis. I mean, people come to our events for all kinds of reasons. Some people come for health, some people come for wealth, some people come for relationships. It's really funny, and they show up. Angry people, they're angry with themselves. When they're angry with themselves, they'll be impatient and angry with others. People who are unhappy with themselves will punish other people so that they can feel their unhappiness. That's who they are. That's the emotion that's driving their behaviors. People who are in love with themselves will find love in others. People who are happy with themselves will find something that they can connect with. They won't see all the flaws. They'll see some part of them that they want to enjoy. I mean, so if you're in a relationship and you've scrubbed the cupboard and you've taken out all those skeletons and you've looked at them and you said, I don't want to bring this into my relationship. I don't want my insecurity to be there. I don't want my fear to be there. I don't want my judgment to be there. I don't want my emotions from other relationships to be there. So let me finish this. In other words, if you want love in your life, in your future, then you better take care of your frustration, because you can't bring that there. You got to leave it. So then, well, you may say to me, well, it's because that person and this emotion from 15 years ago, my ex, makes me feel frustrated. Well, let me tell you something. The only reason that you're thinking about your ex is because you're still in frustration. You overcome frustration, you'll look back at your ex and you'll be like, I wish them well.
Yeah.
I'm not connected to my past any longer. So cleaning the cupboards and getting down to those thoughts that slip by people's awareness all the time, their behaviors, how they complain, they make excuses, they say it'll never happen. What do? And the emotions that keep them connected to their past, they won't even see that person. That they'll walk right past their future relationship. They'll never recognize that person because they're looking at their future through the neurology and the chemistry of their past.
Wow.
And the brain only learns we only see reality based on pattern recognition. I memorize your face, now I know Lewis. And if the pattern matches, I know. But if you're creating a future, and you're not clear on that future, and you want all these things, but you haven't addressed all those circuits and behaviors and emotions and chemicals of the past, you won't recognize the pattern. You'll walk right past the relationship. You'll never see it. So I think that there's the preparation for the relationship, the overcoming, and overcoming and overcoming and overcoming and overcoming and becoming. All of a sudden now says, I am worthy. And the universe only gives us what we think we're worthy of receiving. So when you're worthy to receive, it's not going to be on Match.com when you're looking at body parts and whatever else. This is going to be like ka-ching. Like,
energy connection.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like that came out of nowhere. Because when you're in survival, and you're in separation, and you're in lack, and you're forcing and controlling and trying to predict outcomes, you're matter trying to change matter. And of course, it's going to take time for this to happen because you're creating in three-dimensional reality, and everything in three-dimensional reality takes time. But when you're creating from the heart, with a coherent brain and a coherent heart, and you got that 5G Wi-Fi signal, it's not like you go anywhere now. The experiences are coming to, you're drawing the event to you.
People have to understand what coherence is and what incoherence is. I think that for the most part, the hormones of stress, again, living in survival, the moment you begin to become agitated or impatient or judgmental or resentful or frustrated or bitter or sad or guilty or whatever, what happens is the primitive nervous system switches on, and you're mobilizing enormous amounts of energy for some threat in your external environment. So you can run from a predator, so you can hide from a predator, so you could fight a predator. And that's really good for the short term. I mean, all organisms in nature can tolerate short-term stress, but the problem is that when you keep turning on that stress response and you can't turn it off, now the body begins to move out of balance, because stress is when your body's knocked out of homeostasis. So when you turn on that stress response and you can't turn it off, now there begins to become some breakdowns in the body. So now you keep racing the heart because of traffic, because of your teenager, because of your finances, but there's no predator back there. But you're turning it on as if you're being chased constantly by some predator. The problem with that is that all of a sudden the heart, that should beat coherently and rhythmically, starts to beat very incoherent. It becomes arrhythmic. It becomes disintegrated. Its rhythm begins to change. At the same time, when you're living by the hormones of stress, the brain gets a rush of adrenaline, it gets an arousal, and the arousal then causes you to pay attention to your body, pay attention to your environment, pay attention to time, because if you're being chased by a predator, you better be thinking about your body, you better be thinking about where in your environment you're going to run, and you better be thinking about how much time you have to get there. The problem is, again, as you begin to keep firing those chemicals into your brain, and you shift your attention from a person or a problem or a thing or a place or an experience over and over again, each one of those things has neurological networks in your brain. As you begin to shift your attention, you begin to fire all these circuits and you begin to produce an incoherent brain. So when your brain's incoherent, you're incoherent. When your heart's incoherent, you don't feel good. So then is it possible then to begin to teach people how to create more coherence in their heart and in their brain? We've measured this thousands and thousands of times. So when you're under stress, you're focusing on matter, you're focusing on objects, you're focusing on things, you're narrowing your focus because the danger is around the corner, and you're paying attention to one thing. Really great for the short term. But if you keep doing that and you keep arousing the brain, you drive the brain into higher brain states, what's called high beta. And now it's like driving your sports car in first gear on the freeway. So then instead of focusing on matter and objects and things and narrowing your focus, if you teach people how to open their focus and sense space instead of matter, energy, and information, when you open your focus, you can't analyze or think, you can't obsess. And brain waves tend to slow down, and not only slow down, but get highly organized and coherent. At the same time, the heart starts to get coherent, and the heart starts to affect the brain starts to affect the heart, and all of a sudden now, when you're living by stress, you're drawing from this invisible vital field of energy and turning it into chemistry, and you're robbing the body's vital energy. So now you're more matter and less energy, you're more particle and less wave, and you can exert very little effects in your life. But then when you begin to free yourself from the chains of those addictive emotions, you begin to open your heart, the field around your body. The heart begins to produce a magnetic field that sometimes can go to 9 meters wide. And if you can teach a person how to feel an elevated emotion and sustain it, and they begin to like drop pebbles in water over and over again, and they start to produce these beautiful waves. If they feel deeply and richly and profoundly, they're dropping big stones that are producing bigger waves. Now those waves are energy, and energy is frequency, and all frequency carries information like radio waves and cell phone waves. What those waves carry is your thought, your intent. So now the carrier of your own vibrational patterns begins to carry information that is going to begin to influence matter. So if I'm sitting next to you and you're coherent and I'm coherent, when those two waves come together, they summate and create a bigger amplitude, and that's called a higher energy. That's called constructive interference. If you got 750 people in the room and they're all doing that,
that's rocking.
Now, yeah, you're going to see energy go really high in the room. Now, if I'm coherent and you're coherent, but the person sitting next to us is not coherent, if you begin to move grandfather clocks in unison and 20 of them are moving together and one's moving out of rhythm, we come back tomorrow, that one that's out of rhythm is going to just join and become entrained to the other one. So sooner or later, when we get that effect where there's enough people doing it, everybody starts to become entrained, and now there's a coherent, very, very palpable, measurable. We've measured the energy, and the energy in the room is just off the chart. And now we have enough energy in the room for the miraculous and the supernatural to occur. Well, the whole reason, Michael, we began testing is because we started seeing very strong phenomenological changes happening right in a weekend workshop, like people with MS getting out of their wheelchair, and people with lupus and celiac disease all of a sudden getting better, and chronic pain and scheduled for surgeries getting up and having no pain at all. So when that moment I realized that something supernatural was happening, that I wanted to quantify it. So we brought in a team of scientists and researchers, and we've done over 4,750 brain scans now, quantitative EEGs. We measure people's brains before they start an event, 5-day event. We measure their brains at the end of 5 days. And what I want to see is that the change isn't just in their mind, it's in their brain. We randomly select different people, and we measure their brain in real time during meditation. And I want to know their inner workings, so when they're there and when they're not. And we've just gained a tremendous amount of knowledge about that state. We have people wearing HRV monitors. We tape them to their chest. We partner with the Heart Math Institute. We've been working with them for 3.5, 4 years now. They're good friends of mine. And we've measured, thousands and thousands of hearts. And we want people to regulate and sustain brain coherence and heart coherence. So we can say to the person, hey, you know what, Michael, you're doing it. Or, hey, Michael, you know what, you're actually not doing it. And let's get you trained here to be able to do it. We measure the energy around people's bodies. We measure the energy centers of their bodies. We measure the energy of the room. We measure epigenetic changes in urine. We measure simultaneous heart coherence amongst 50 people to see if 500 or 700 people can affect 50 or 70 people wearing HRV monitors and begin to influence their autonomic nervous system while they're just sitting there relaxing if the person begins to create an elevated emotion and begins to send the intent for the greatest good of the people wearing the heart rate monitors, will they all go into heart coherence at the same time? The answer is yes. So we've done a tremendous amount of research. There comes a moment in a lot of our workshops where people start to have very profound internal experiences, like full-on IMAX experiences. And I always wondered if that could be measurable. So if you look at a strip chart of a brain scan, you see a brain scan like this, and you see brain waves like this, and they're moving, and you see alpha, and you see beta, and then you see theta, and you see delta, and you can see, 16 to 20 leads on the brain. You can see the front of the brain, the side of the brain, the back of the brain, the top of the brain, and you can measure what's going on in a person's brain. Well, we've got so many studies where all of a sudden we're seeing the slow change, and all of a sudden, imagine grabbing a handful of Crayola crayons and just going like this up and down the entire brain scan. You can't see anything. As a matter of fact, you can't even measure that because it looks like a snowstorm. And whatever's going on between that person's ears in that moment is absolutely real. In fact, they're having a full-on sensory experience without their senses. It is more lucid and more real than anything in your external environment. And we've seen that so many times. Now, when a brain circuitry fires, a cluster of networks of neurons fire, normally we produce about 40 microvolts of energy. So 10 to 60 is usually normal, 40 is about the normal. Right now we're probably doing that. But when we started figuring out how to measure this, and we figured out how much energy was in the brain, we were measuring 1 million microvolts of energy, 2.5 million microvolts of energy, 4 million microvolts of energy. That's 100,000 times normal. That person's brain is producing a whole new stream of consciousness, and whatever's going on between their ears is where reality is. And that, we take the person out and we say to them, so what happened? And they just are in tears and they say, oh my God, I just had the most profound experience. Now, if experience enriches the brain, and experience produces an emotion, they're rewriting their biology in 1 second. And what's cool about it is that the neuroscientists, neuroscientific community that's come and studied our work in our events said, oh, that person's having a seizure right now. They're having a seizure. And we kind of look over at the person. She's got tears of joy rolling down her face. She's got a big smile. And we're saying, really? She doesn't look like she's having a seizure to me. She looks like she's doing really good. So we measure her HRV. She's wearing an HRV monitor while she's producing 1 million microvolts of energy in her brain instead of 40. And we say, we look at her HRV measurements, and we see that her brain is in love with, her heart is in love with the experience. Her heart is in coherence for the whole entire hour. If she was having a seizure, her heart would be going crazy. So the mystical moment is being defined. It's being quantitatively studied. And now we're learning how to induce that state for people. And I'm telling you, you have one of those experiences, just one, and you can't ever go back to business as usual, ever. And you can't say that the person can't make their brain do that. It's actually happening to them. We're wired for this. I think we make it way more complicated than it really needs to be. I think it would make sense that if you're spending 70% of the time, Michael, living by the hormones of stress, and your attention is on your outer environment, your attention is on your body, and your attention is on the future, predictable future, the familiar past, wherever you place your attention is where you place your energy. So for the most part, that's who you believe you are. So it would make sense then that in order for you to begin to tap into greater levels of consciousness, it would be a good idea to sit down and close your eyes and disconnect from your external environment, less sensory information coming into your brain. Play soft music in the background or put earplugs in your ear. That's less information coming from your environment. So your attention moves from your outer world to your inner world. Sit your body down and make it sit still and not let it get up and do things so it can experience things, to feel emotions, to eat, to smell, to do whatever, to taste. And if there's even less sensory information coming in because you're not moving your body around, then you're getting beyond your body. And if you're not thinking about tomorrow or the next day or your emails or your appointments or what happened yesterday or the emotions, and you can work on the present moment, that's the moment where you begin to fall into possibility, because in the quantum field, all potentials exist in the present moment. So then teaching people how to find the sweet spot of the generous present moment and allowing them to unfold into this realm, this infinite field of possibilities as a thought, that's when they begin to get beyond their body, their environment, and time, and that's when they begin to connect with a greater level of awareness.